My name is Mary Reck, and you're watching The World According to Mary. Today we'll be doing some Adulting 101, where I share life lessons, whether you're just starting out or seeking new insights.
Today we're going to be making a really great recipe of the zucchini lasagna boats, where the zucchinis are cut in half and the seeds are scooped out, and you put a really great lasagna meat on it, and you put a white sauce on it, and then 2 different kinds of cheeses. Oh, it's so good. So the first thing that we have to do is something called mise en place, which is French for everything put in place, as I discussed in my making salad video, where you have everything out and ready to go. Okay, so we're going to start with the sauce, and I'm going to talk with you about the ingredients of the sauce. And then we're going to do the zucchinis, and then we're going to fill it and put the cheeses on. So the first thing you need to have is a little bit of oil, because you're going to be sauteing some vegetables. We're going to do 1 rib of celery and 1 small onion. This is the smallest one I have, although it might be a medium, but onion's good. We're going to cut them up really small, and then we're going to saute them. Then we're going to add in 4 ounces of prosciutto, and I had bought a pound of prosciutto and divided it up and put them in the freezer, so they last a really long time. And we're just going to chop that up so that it'll fry really nicely. Then we have a 1.5 pounds of ground beef, which I also had in the freezer, and it's thawing out in the kitchen sink right now. And we're going to have 4 cloves of garlic, and we're going to grate that into the meat when it comes in. Then we'll have 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, some beef stock, some red wine, and a can of whole tomatoes. And I'll talk with you about why I would want whole tomatoes instead of diced tomatoes when we get there. So first thing is, I washed the celery already, and I get out my handy dandy wonderful knife, and I take off the safety cover, and I put it onto my cutting board, and I get chopping. So we're going to cut off the ends of it, and I'm going to cut off the connection section here, because that is not good. So that you don't need to have that. So we're going to chop it into small pieces. So you need to slice it down the center first, get all the dirt out, and slice this larger piece a couple of times down the center. And being very careful with your fingers to keep them out of the way, but secure the vegetable so it doesn't slide, and so that your knife doesn't lose its grip and do something bad to your hand. Okay. So I've got them cut up into pretty small pieces. You can cut them smaller if you want, but they're just going to disappear in the sauce. So this is fine. So you're going to chop them up as small as you can. And being careful to keep your fingers out of the way. Okay, so this is a brand new stalk of celery from the outside of the head, and it's got a lot of green in it, which means there's a lot of nice green flavor to it. They're really delicious. All of the layers of a head of celery have different tastes and textures, and the outside is really strong flavored. So the next one we're going to do is the onion. So I'm going to cut off the top and the bottom, peel it as well as I can, then I'm going to cut it in half and do a little bit more with it. So cut off the top part that sticks up, that usually has the flowers on it, eventually. So we're going to cut that off, and I try to peel off a little bit of the skin, just makes it easier in the next step. And then I'm going to cut off the root end. There we go, and put that in my garbage bowl. And take off the peel as well as I can. Okay, now there's another layer of peel, but I'm going to cut this in half, and then I'm going to peel this off, plus a layer of, well, let's see, you try to peel this off first. Sometimes the next layer is also kind of not great. So far this one looks pretty good. So that's really good. Usually I peel 2 layers off, as I said, because it saves time in the end, but this one looks really quite nice. Okay, so we're going to keep it as it is. This is a half an onion, and we're going to be dicing it. So we're going to chop it down the center of each half. Okay, and then we're going to cut down from the top of each half, keeping all the pieces together like a jigsaw puzzle as much as you can. Sometimes they come out like Jenga. Okay, so then we turn it and we chop it down the other direction. So an onion has 3 directions and you have to cut all of them. In this case anyway, when you're dicing. Be very careful with your fingers and the knife. There we go. So we're going to be sauteing this in a minute. But first, since I have my knife out, I want to chop up the prosciutto. Now, the original recipe called for pancetta, and I did a taste test, and I think I like prosciutto better. Don't know exactly how to verbalize it, but, and I think it's actually cheaper. So you can do a taste test if you want. This actually, I chopped it up already. I forgot. When I was prepping them, I chopped them all up and then I weighed them into 4-ounce bits and I put them in plastic wrap. So this is already chopped and ready to go, which is great. Okay, so the next one I want to do is I want to get the garlic ready. The recipe calls for 4 cloves of garlic. Now, as you may be aware, garlic cloves come in many different shapes and sizes, so you got to try to like average it out, because I mean this one's enormous, it's gigantic. I mean it's not a giant species, but then we also have really teeny tiny ones. This is actually considered the normal size of garlic. It's about 1 inch long. To me, that's a normal size. But I have 4 cloves out, so I'm going to get them ready. And what you want to do is peel the papery part off and cut the bottom. There are a lot of different ways to do it. Some people shake it in a glass, and there's these other things, but I just normally spend the time and peel it. Kind of a pain in the butt, but this is the way I do it. And this may take a few minutes, so bear with me. Sometimes if you cut the bottom part, it makes it easier to peel it off on the side. And you're going to have garlic flavor on your fingers, but I'm going to show you how to get rid of that with something you already have in the kitchen. It's really amazing. Okay, so I got 1 out. That's the normal size one. I'm going to cut the top off of this one and peel it down, and the bottom part, and peel some more, and then take off the jacket, basically. Okay. Didn't come off. There we go. Oh, there's 2. Oh, so now we have 5 evidently, because that big one was actually 2. Sometimes they come in twins. Within a jacket, there's 2 of them. Okay, that's a nice one. It's hard to overdo onion and garlic when they're sauteed because it gets rid of the sulfur and the bitterness, and it adds a really nice flavor. So I think we can do this with 5 big pieces of garlic. And there we go. Not quite. Sometimes you might have to cut it, peel it off. Doesn't matter. It's not, no one's judging you on how you peeled your garlic. I don't care. Okay, we're almost done. Okay, so I'm here at the stove and we're going to be cooking up the onions and celery and then the prosciutto and then all the other ingredients. So I'm going to turn on the stove. I just turn it on high because I like it to heat up fast. So this won't take very long. You just want to put a little bit of olive oil, actually avocado oil or olive oil or your favorite oil, into the stove, into the saucepan. And then I will add in the onion and celery in just a minute as it heats up. Okay, so now the oil is heating up. I have to admit that this stove is not level because that's the way it was when we moved in. It's a little higher in the front, and eventually I'm going to ask somebody to help me get this flatter and more level. Another a cool tool that you can get that is awesome. This may somewhat look familiar from our COVID days. This is a thermometer. This is an infrared thermometer. I actually got it at a hardware store. And it helps me find the temperature of the pan. So I click it on here, and right now it's 270 degrees, which is pretty good. A good sauteing temperature is actually about 350, and they call that the medium heat, but we'll go here. Oh, you can hear it. You can hear it sizzling now, so that's awesome. So we're going to saute these for about 5 minutes until they start to wilt, and you want to coat them in oil. You don't want to let them alone and go do anything else in that period of time. So we're just going to saute for a little while, and I'll show you what it looks like at the end. Okay, so it's been about a minute, and this is what it looks like right now. I turned the temperature down so it wouldn't burn, but the onions are sauteing nicely. You can see that they're a little bit translucent, and so we're just going to continue cooking this for about actually 3 more minutes or so. Okay, so we've got a little less than a minute before we go to the next step. So as you can see, it's nice. The onions are all translucent, but I haven't really browned anything. I did turn the stove down even further to about medium. I just checked the temperature with the handy dandy thermometer, and it's about 265, which I guess would probably be considered a low temperature. And so what you want to do in general is get used to your stove. Practice making stuff so that you are comfortable with how hot things are and you know how it works for you, because all of the stoves are different. Okay, so it's been about 5 minutes, and we're going to add the prosciutto. As you can see, there's lots of fat in the prosciutto, so it's going to add a lot of flavor, and it's going to be nice and crispy. It's really quite delicious. Prosciutto's kind of a bacon product. I will have to find out how prosciutto is made. And I know that if you can't eat bacon for whatever reason, they do have a beef-based bacon products or products. So there are some other options if you do not eat pork for religious or health reasons, or maybe you don't like the flavor, but I've never met anybody with that problem. So we're going to cook this for a little while. I don't know how long, but until it crisps up, and it's going to be on low so it doesn't burn, and it's going to add a lot of flavor to the dish. About a minute into the sauteing of the prosciutto, and it's looking a little different in color, and I'm just trying to separate the bits from each other so all of the sides get nice and crispy. And I don't know how long it takes to make this dish. It takes a long time, and what I like to do is make a bunch of it and freeze them, as many as will fit on a baking sheet. And if there's extra sauce, which there often is, you can freeze it very nicely and put it in the freezer and then take it out whenever you want to have another batch or half a batch, so it's really flexible that way. But we're gonna keep cooking. This has been another minute. So this has been cooking for about 2 minutes now, and I will check back with you in another minute so we can see what it looks like. It's been about 5 minutes since we've been sauteing the prosciutto, and I do want to let you know that it's probably been about 20 minutes since we started prepping and cutting up the celery and the onion, so that'll give you an idea of how long the process is. So don't do this if you're really busy and if you don't have a lot of time. So if we can, we're almost done. So if you want to take a look at the prosciutto and the onion and the celery, you'll see that they're sauteing very nicely now. I do want to get a little more crispiness, so we're going to cook it for a couple of more minutes. So it's been about 3 minutes since the last time you saw this, and it's looking very nice and crispy. You see the little browner parts of the crispy prosciutto, like right here, and a bunch of places over here. So we're going to go to the next step, which is to add the ground beef. Now, as I said earlier, I had it frozen in the refrigerator, and it's 1.5 pounds. And so I'm going to go over to the sink where I have it in water, ice water, thawing out. May not be fully thawed out, but it'll be fine. Actually, it is all fully thawed out. That's pretty exciting. It doesn't take long this way. You should never thaw it out just on the stove or on the counter. That's not good, but this is fine. So you put this in and you break it up so that it's going to be all homogeneous. There's not going to be any lumpy parts when this is all done. It's going to be amazing. You're going to love this. So let me just break this up as much as I can. Okay, so as I go, I'm going to be stirring in the cooked food and flipping over the beef and smashing the cooked bits in with the uncooked bits, and it'll eventually all get cooked and be really amazing. So I will see you in a couple of minutes. So I'm going to show you what it looks like when you start cooking it. I've actually swapped out that little wooden fork with the best tool to use, which is a pancake flapper. So this has been cooking for less than a minute, so you can hear it sizzling here. So I'm just going to take a bunch and I'm going to flip it over, and you can see that it's nicely browned, cooked brown, and I'm just going to keep flipping it over so you get the uncooked part hitting the heat. See, you can see that it's darker. You don't want it to brown like a hamburger and get the Maillard reaction, which is when it's crusty. You want it to be all one texture because it's going to be all in a nice sauce. You don't want any hard chunks in there. So as this cooks, I'm going to keep flipping it over and keep chopping into it to make the bits and pieces really small. And I will see you back here in another minute or so, maybe 2 minutes. So it's been a couple of minutes, and I have been letting it cook on the bottom and then chopping it up in little pieces, and this is what it looks like so far. It's not quite done. I would rather it cook for another minute or so, and so I'll just double check to make sure all of the meat is brown or gray or whatever color this is instead of pink. I don't want it to be pink. That is not what this recipe needs. So this is going to just take another minute or so, and we'll just keep chopping, and it'll be ready for the next step, which will be the garlic grating. Now the original recipe called for a Dutch oven, which is like a big soup pot that you can put in the oven, and it's probably because this is going to be really full. I didn't want to do it in a soup pot because it's hard to see, because the sides are so high, and you'd have to like look at it like that, and it's really hard to do with a camera. So I'm going to do this. It's going to be really full, but eventually with all of the liquids that get evaporated out, it goes down quite a bit. So I am going to double check this one more time, make sure it is all cooked. And let me just smell. It does smell cooked. I don't smell any raw meat at all. Okay, so we're going to go to the next step, which is grating the garlic in it. Instead of chopping it, it gives it a more smooth flavor of garlic all through it instead of big chunks that you're going to eat. So I'll be right back. Now we're going to deal with the garlic, and I would like to grate it rather than chop it in pieces, as I said, so you don't get big chunks that you're eating. This is a small grater. You can do Parmesan cheese with this as well. There's a lot of different ways that you can process garlic, but this is what I happen to have. And we're just going to grate it right over it. And you can see that it's really easy to do, although at the end it gets a little dangerous to your fingertips. So we're just going to keep going. And, okay. The next one I'm going to try to, well, maybe not. I don't know if I can do this. Oh, maybe not. Okay. It's all going to get very homogenized at the end by the time this is over, so I wouldn't worry too much about these outer shell skin parts of the garlic. It's definitely edible. I wouldn't throw it out. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to get garlic, smell on my hands, and I'm going to show you at the sink how to get rid of garlic smell on your hands. You're not going to believe it, but it'll be true. Okay, we're almost done. And as I am doing this, you can see the steam coming off, which is the water from the beef and the onions and the celery that's evaporating, and we need to evaporate a lot of water from this recipe when I add in the other ingredients, so it's good that it's happening now. Okay, so I got all this stuff, and I'm going to just keep grating it with my whole hand because it doesn't seem right to throw this much out. Okay, well, I am going to do a little bit more grating. Trying not to kill my fingers. Okay, I'm going to take this bit out. Okay, so put the rest of it in. It'll all melt away. So as you can see, I have garlic on my hand. So I'm going to go over to the sink and I'm going to show you how to get rid of that smell as if it had never been there. I'm going to rinse off my hands, obviously, with a little bit of soap, get rid of some of it. And then I'm going to touch stainless steel, which is not this is plastic, I think. So you could actually buy a bar of stainless steel from Martha, but you know, you've got a lot of it in your kitchen. And I really don't smell any garlic on my hand at all. Nope, it's all gone. It's amazing. It's some sort of chemical reaction. Okay, so back to the beef and the garlic and the celery and the onion and the prosciutto. And I'm mixing in the garlic to cook it a little bit. It really doesn't need to cook much. You don't want it to burn. Just chopping it up so that it'll incorporate and make it all homogenized and all the same flavor throughout, so you won't get a big chunk of garlic in one mouthful and no garlic in another mouthful. Although some of it might need to come out, which is fine. Okay, so that'll get all settled in as we keep stirring. Okay, so the next step is to put in the tomato paste. And I love this tube from Keto. I love this tube from Keto instead of a can, because if you open a can of tomato paste, you're always left with 3/4 of a can of tomato paste, and it can't seal up and it's a big pain, and then you throw it away. So we're going to get a tablespoon measure, which is this, and it doesn't stick, which is nice. So what I have done in the past, I haven't done it recently, is I take a whole tube and I measure out the entire tube into 2 tablespoon balls, and I freeze them in the freezer. And then when you're ready to make it, you just pull it out of the freezer and it's right there. You don't even have to get this out. And there we go, that's about 2. Keep in mind, this is not rocket science, brain surgery, or baking. It doesn't need to be exactly to the micron. So if you got a little bit more or a little bit less, it's okay. So the next thing we're doing is we're cooking the tomato paste so it tastes cooked instead of raw. I mean, it is cooked in a way where they evaporated it, but you want it to combine with all of the other ingredients and cook for a few minutes. Starting to look really interesting. Look at all those different colors and shapes and textures. And you can imagine what it smells like here. It's really nice. It's going to smell even better in a couple minutes. Okay, so that took like 1.5 minutes or something to cook it, right? It's all mixed together. Okay. So the next step is to add most of the liquids, which is 1/2 cup of red wine, 1/2 cup of beef stock, and then a can of tomatoes. Now usually I add whole tomatoes. This time I only have crushed tomatoes. You can use either. I don't like to use diced tomatoes because they add a chemical that keeps the shape, and they never break down into the sauce. And the next time I make this, I will try to remember to film me doing the whole tomatoes. But in this case, we're just going to add the beef stock. And what I don't make my own beef stock. I just take a can and I freeze it in ice cubes, and I put them in the freezer. And then when I need them, I thaw them in the microwave. And then this is a 1/2 cup of red wine. I don't think it matters what kind of red wine you use, just a good red wine that you're gonna drink. And it does smell really good though. Okay, so you make it so that all together it's a cup. And so that's a lot of liquid that's gonna evaporate. All you want is the flavor. And there's no alcohol that's gonna be left in here after it's all evaporated. So listen to that. Oh my goodness, that sounds wonderful. Okay, and I've already opened the can of tomatoes. And this is just tomato juice, basically. It's crushed tomatoes, and that way it's going to be easier than with the whole tomatoes. It's actually got a little basil in it. Very good brand. I don't care which brand you use, as long as you like it. You should always have a red silicone spatula when you're cooking with tomatoes, because the white ones always pick up the color and you can never really get it out. So I'm scraping out all of the goodness from the tomatoes. Yeah, because if you're paying for it, you might as well use it, right? Okay, so the next, step is to evaporate, and this takes at least a half an hour. And what I like to do is I like to do it, not let it boil and bubble, because that takes away the sugar from the tomatoes. So I like to stir it right below a simmer, and it'll basically just evaporate, and the sweetness of the tomatoes will stay. If you feel like doing it the other way, where you let it boil and you go away and you do something for a few minutes, that's up to you. But I feel like it tastes better with the sugar in it rather than the starch. So we're going to turn up the heat. Oops, that's down, sorry. Turn up the heat and let this warm up, and then we're going to turn it down again when it gets too hot. Right now the temperature is around 120 degrees. So obviously we need it higher than that, because it doesn't even feel hot to your mouth. Just a side note, if you're warming up leftovers, you want it to be at least 140 degrees to feel like it's hot in your mouth. So we're just going to continue evaporating this, and I'll let you see it every 5 minutes. And we'll do a little animation, so to speak, to show you what it looks like as it evaporates. So I'll see you in 5 minutes. So here we have the sauce after the first 5 minutes of cooking. I don't know if it looks much different. It's about 180, 190 degrees, just under boiling. And you can actually see there's a little bit of bubbling. I think the stove may have a hot spot, I'm not sure. But we're gonna just keep stirring and evaporating and getting all of the deliciousness to concentrate, and I'll see you in another 5 minutes. So it's been about 10 minutes since I started sauteing all of the tomatoes and the wine and the beef juice or stock, and you can start to see some progress. It's a lot lower than it was. It was really up to the top of the pan, but it's a lot lower. It's certainly not done by any means, because we're going to get every little bit of this out, and you are going to be able to part the Red Sea with this thing. But you can see that it is better, and it's smelling incredible. So another thing I want to go over with you while I do this, and I'm going to put the timer on for another 5 minutes, is don't be afraid to change the temperature of the stove. You don't have to keep it on medium low or medium high. If it starts to be too hot, turn it down. If it's gotten too cold, turn it up. It's really your kitchen, it's your kingdom to do whatever you want to do and whatever you need to do to get the food done. Right now, the thermometer says that the food is about 175 degrees, and that's good. That's a good temperature to keep it so that it doesn't bubble, but it's still evaporating. You can see all the evaporation coming off of it. You don't want it to be too high to burn it. All right, so another 5 minutes has passed, and it's starting to look really good. You can see that it's a lot thicker already. This is not anywhere near where we need to be, but it is very encouraging. During that time period, I did find some unrendered prosciutto fat, which I took out with my own fingers. You can use a fork or tweezer or whatever you want, but they're not gonna render at this point, and probably not gonna taste really good. So I just took them out. So this is evaporating again, and it's gonna be a lot thicker than this when it's done. So I'll see you in another 5 minutes or so. So another 5 minutes has passed, and as you can see, it's really tightening up quite nicely. I actually turned the temperature down a little bit because there's a lot less liquid to heat up, and you can see that it's about half of the volume probably. It does need a little bit further to go, and it's going to be even better than it looks right now. You don't want to think that you're done, because even though it looks like it should be done, it's still got way too much liquid, and it's not going to be as intense a flavor if you don't give it the time that it needs to evaporate. It has been about an hour and a half since the beginning of the preparation with the celery and the onion. So as I said, it's not a quick meal, but it is a really amazing, tasty meal. So I'll see you in another 5 minutes. We have come towards the end of the trip, not quite. As you can see, it is parting, but it is slumping back in. When this is actually done, it will part and the sides will stay where they are, and there will be no more liquid in it. But it's looking really, really good. I did take the temperature down a little bit, and it's about, well, it says 148, then 170, then 185, so who the heck knows. But it's below boiling, and that's what I want. And what you want to do is make sure you get all of the dehydrated parts that are on the side. Some pans it can kind of stick, but that's where all the thickness will come from and all the really good tasty parts. So you want to mesh that in so it averages out to be a lot thicker. So you don't want it just to be all juice in the bottom and throw out the good parts. So I'll see you in another 5 minutes. Another 5 minutes passed and we're almost ready. It's still not quite ready yet. So as you can see, it is still moving. When it is done, these sides will not move. But another way to check also is by the shininess of the top. Now, you might think that this is oil, and some of it is, but a lot of this is still the water that needs to evaporate. When it is all done and it's all dry, it's going to be more matte than it is currently. So I will keep doing what I'm doing, and I will be back in 5 minutes. All right, another 5 minutes has passed, and we really are almost done. I still will wait because, as you can see, if you press it, it's going to slump, and that's still got too much water in it. It's going to taste less intense than it should. But I do want to keep showing this to you as we get done. It really is just a few more minutes. I'm going to keep this stirring around and flipping it over, and you're going to see a difference as it tightens up. So we're going to keep watching this for the last couple minutes if you don't mind. So here we go. And it's still not quite done yet, but it's looking incredible. As you can see, when I pick it up, it doesn't really go anywhere, but it's still not quite tight enough. And you'll thank me when you do this yourself and you don't. At one time, I stopped cooking too soon because I was really hungry and I wanted it to be done. And I kind of regretted it because it wasn't quite as incredibly delicious with all of the liquid in it, because there wasn't as much meat and flavor in it as there normally is, because normally it's just a big solid mass of sauce. As you can see, all of the ground beef is all smooshed up into a paste. It's really more like a paste than a sauce. And you can't really see much of anything individually. You can see some bits of prosciutto, you can see some bits of celery and some bits of onion, but on the whole, everything is really homogenized and is all going to taste the same from one bite to another. And we are really almost done here. All right, so that was the last 5 minutes, and as you can see, dramatically
different
and is very solid. Remember back when we were cooking before we added the tomatoes and the wine and the beef stock, and we just had basically the beef and the tomato paste? It looked a lot like this, and I was stirring in the tomato paste to cook it, and it was really stiff. And this is exactly what it looked like, but this has a lot more flavor. So you can hear it, it's now starting to fry, and there's really no liquid left in it. So we are done with this step, and the next step is going to be doing the zucchini boats and then putting everything together. All right, so the original recipe said to do the zucchini first, but that would mean turning the stove on twice, so I'm not going to do that. So we're going to turn the stove on to 425, and you want to get a feel for your stove. Because some stoves are inaccurate. This one is inaccurate. I'm actually going to turn it up a little bit. I'm going to bring it up to 450. I don't know why it's inaccurate. It is kind of annoying. I haven't figured it all out yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to coat or cover a sheet pan with aluminum foil. my baking sheet, my sheet pan is very large, and so I use the extra large aluminum foil. And if you don't use aluminum foil very often, just remember that it does not stretch. So you have to have it in place and then just push it in. Because I have tried to do that and I ripped it, so kind of annoying. You just want to be very careful, making sure you have it in all of the corners here and edges. And right now this stove top's very hot. So, okay. All right, so next I'm going to be getting the zucchinis ready, and I'll meet you back over at the table. The next step is to prep the zucchinis. Only one time has my amount of zucchini matched the amount of sauce. So I've always had leftovers, except for that one time. It was just very weird that it worked out. So I just rinsed off the zucchinis, and I'm going to cut off the ends and slice them down the middle. So use my garbage bowl. And I have 7, that's how much we got, but you can try to estimate how much you're going to have. I've never had too many zucchinis. So the next step is we're going to slice them down the center the long way. That'll make the boats. And you want to be very careful, keeping your hands out of the way, of course, as I have been saying. And you want to take your knife and carefully slice it down like that. Okay, so if there's a curve to it like this, you can see there's a slight curve to it. You want to put it on the outside of the curve, otherwise they will not match and they won't be the same size. There's always a curve in a zucchini, isn't there? So you're going to do this here. All right, so I'm going to sit down because my back is hurting to scoop this out. And you just get a little teaspoon. You don't want it too big because you don't want to have it out of control. And I'm scooping the seeds out of the zucchini. And when you're done with this, you can actually squeeze out the juice, and it's actually quite delicious. It's very refreshing. There's a lot of seeds, and you just want to take all the seeds out because they don't really taste very good. They don't taste bad, but they don't really taste good. And then you're going to put the meat sauce in the hole that you're making by taking out the seeds. And so far we've got this much done. Doesn't take too long, but this is a great way to spend a day at home with your family. So this is what one of them looks like. And I'm going to get the rest of them done, and then we're going to go over and finish cooking them. So I don't think I showed you clearly before how to do this. So this is the last half of a zucchini. So you just want to take your spoon and choke up on it, and you just use the top half of the spoon and just scrape it carefully, because I mean you can break it and you can go too far on the edges, and you don't want to do that. But you do want to get all of the seeds out, because the seeds have a lot of water in them, and this is not a meal that wants a lot of water. And when you get to a point, you're going to turn it over and you're going to scrape it down the other side, and trying to get it kind of smooth on the edges. And just scoop it out and scoop out the seeds, and that's it. And so the next part we're going to do is putting together the meat and the zucchini, and then putting together the different cheeses, and then it'll be ready for the oven. It's going to be so good. You're going to love it. All right, so now I'm just laying these out. So I'm going to be coating them with oil and then pepper, and then I'm going to be flipping them over and putting them in the oven for about 15 minutes. So what I do, just because it's easiest, is I pour some into one of them as a little vessel, and then I use that to massage the oil into the other ones. And if you have too much, it's fine, but I've never really had too much before. And sometimes I just do this, and I massage it in, and I try not to lose the oil. Don't really massage it in, I just rub it all over. And I'm going to be putting pepper on it afterwards too, so they're going to go upside down, just so you get a nice little browning part on that edge. But you just get oil all over it. And pour some more oil here. Oops. Just get the oil all over the place. Okay, so I'm going to wash my hands, and I'll come back and put the pepper on, stick them in the oven for 15 minutes. All right, so I have a pepper grinder here. I like to use fresh ground pepper. I do have an electric one, but I don't have any free available pepper. This came in this container, and I don't think it's reusable. So we're just going to grind the pepper into the boats, and then we're going to flip it over and put some on the other side as well. So I'm just going to do that the whole batch, as much or as little as you want. It's been 15 minutes, so we're going to check. Sorry about the steam. We're going to check the zucchini, make sure that they're done. Now, the results may vary, as they say, because zucchinis are all individuals. Some may be donner than others. So let's find out. I'm just going to check them. They are definitely done. And I'm going to flip them over. You can see they have that nice little browning on the outside. Very good. That is called, I mentioned this earlier, that is called the Maillard reaction. It's a French guy's name, and it basically covers the browning of sugars that make it taste really good. It happens on steaks as well. When you roast things, it happens. I could go into more detail, but I don't know a whole lot more. I'll have to study up on it. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to stuff them with the sauce that we just made. So we're going to go from here, we're just going to go straight from here into the zucchinis. And what you're going to do is you're going to make it flat, because later, after I'm all done with that, I'm going to make a white sauce with cream cheese and, in my case, non-dairy cream, and put it on here, and then we're going to smother it with more cheeses. So I'm going to put lots of the meat sauce in all of these, as much as I can, and keep it all flat, because this is all flavor. Squish it down really nice and tight. Alright, so the next step that we have to do is the white sauce that I've been talking about, and it's a gluten, it doesn't have any flour in it, it's a keto one, and all it is half cream cheese and half cream, or in my case, non-dairy half and half, which is fine. It's going to be just as good. So I'm going to put 4 ounces of the non-dairy half and half, which is what I happen to have, in the pan, and warm it up slowly. And I'm going to cut in small pieces of about 4 ounces of cream cheese. And as the cream, or half and half, whatever it is, warms up, it'll melt the cream cheese, and of course I'll use a whisk as well. This will take a few minutes. It actually comes together really fast. Now, I never know how much to actually make, because the amount on the zucchinis is always different. And one time I actually had to make the sauce like 3 times to get enough sauce for the zucchinis. So I will be right back after I've rinsed my hands. All right, so now we're just going to warm up the cream a little bit more, turn the heat up a little bit. Just actually go on the right burner, that would be great. And stir it around and get as much of the cream cheese interacting with the warmth as possible. This really doesn't take very long. All right, so we're almost at the end of the white sauce process. It is pretty much all incorporated. You just want to warm it up and thicken it a little bit, get rid of some of that water and the milk part. And it's going to be really nice. Turn this up a little bit. And you can cut it. All right, so we're almost at the end here. I had to put it back on the heat to keep it evaporating, but it's still very thick. Even as it cools down, it'll get thicker. So it's just a matter of eyeballing it and figuring out how thick it's going to be on top of the cold meat and zucchini at this point. Now, you can do this while the zucchini is cooking. I just chose not to. But right now, we're at about the 3-hour mark of how long this recipe takes to cook. So what a lot of people might want to do is just make the sauce first, some evening after dinner, put it in the freezer, and then when you're ready to make the dinner, you'll have the sauce ready, and you can make the zucchinis and the white sauce and sprinkle on the other cheeses. So I will I'll take this off the heat and see how thick this gets. Turn the heat back off as this evaporates. So I'll let you know as soon as this is ready. All right, so I think we're at a good point to use the sauce. It's all up to you. This seems to be thick enough. It coats the back of the front of the spoon as well. It coats the back of the spoon, and it's about 134 degrees. I actually took it off the stove altogether to cool it down a little bit. And I never know how much to make. The original recipe says to use a cup of cream and a cup of the cream cheese. That's always been too much, but this is what I had. This is the amount that I had of cream cheese, 4 ounces. So I'm going to share it among the zucchinis and try to get it all the way down to the last one. And it's quite a bit. And it's really delicious. It adds a nice, soft, smooth feeling as you're getting all of these other flavors. Scrape the bottom as it thickens up and turns kind of solid. So there was plenty. So now we're going to scrape some more and share it among the other boats. All right, so that's what I'm going to do for that. Okay. The next step is the Parmesan cheese and the mozzarella cheese, which I have been keeping secret from you. So I will get them ready and show you the last steps before it goes back in the oven. All right, so the last set of steps is the Parmesan cheese and then the mozzarella cheese on top. So for sanitation purposes, I think that you should put them in bowls because you're going to be sprinkling them with your fingers, and you don't want your fingers directly in the container that the cheese that's going to go back in the refrigerator is going to go in. So you don't want them to get moldy. So you put as much as you think you're going to need. You can always get more. And so you take a fingerful and you just sprinkle it all over it. And if some gets on the aluminum foil, that's just going to be really good eating afterwards. It actually melts and it's really delicious. So we're going to be doing this. As much as you want and as much as you can. And for the people who can't eat cheese, I'm really sorry. I know people who don't have that gene in them, and that makes me sad. Because I can't even imagine. Okay. Looks like I'm going to need some more. Oh, what a shame. you don't want to skimp out on this because this Parmesan cheese has a tartness and a tanginess that is just a really nice addition to the creaminess of the white sauce and the sweetness of the meat sauce. Everything's got a different flavor profile and it's quite delicious. Okay, I'm gonna get some more. Be right back. Okay, so we're gonna finish up with the Parmesan on the last. Then I got some mozzarella cheese that I've been saving in the freezer, and I'm gonna do the same thing with it. And this is gonna get the nice brown and bubbly part of the pizzas that I hope everybody likes. When pizzas are delivered and they're just yellow, greasy balls of cheese and tomato and bread, I'm like, oh, it's not done. It's not brown and bubbly. So I really like it when it gets brown and bubbly. That's the best part. So the mozzarella's got, obviously, as you probably know, a creaminess to it. It's not as tangy as the Parmesan, but that's what the Parmesan is for. And this is just to finish it off and give it that nice Italian ending with the beautiful stringy cheese. So it's only been about 16 minutes and I actually turned it at 15. But a lot of the zucchinis are brown and delicious. And if I put it in for much longer, some of them might burn. So I'm taking them out. We're gonna eat the ones that are perfect, like that. And the others we're gonna freeze, and then we can warm them up again and brown them. So we're going to try this. So first of all, let me turn this oven off. I don't want to then take up the kitchen timer. Okay. So now we're going to serve ourselves. This is going to be so good.
Awesome.
All right, so here's this spatula. All right, so we're going to take two halves. Two halves make a whole. And as you can see, my stove again is still not level, but that's okay. We're going to do this. And we're going to take some of these brown bits. Oh, look at that. Okay. And then I'm going to take this one, which is nice and brown. You could cook it a little longer if you wanted to, but this looks mighty fine to me. And I'm going to take this one because for some reason this one browned more than the others next to it. Oh, this is so good. And, well, I'm going to pick up that later. All right. So I'm going to try this. I know what it tastes like because I made it before. But I want to show you what it looks like inside. Little tower of deliciousness with the cream cheese and the meat sauce and the zucchini. And it's really hot. Mmm. Ah. So good. So good. All right. Well, thanks for sticking with me through this whole thing. I know it took a long time, but as I said, you can make the sauce one day and then make the meal the next day or another day. I will be making other videos. Give me your ideas, what you want to talk about. If you have any recipes that you'd like me to do, I'd be happy to hear about that too. So until next time, thanks a lot. Have a great day. Bye. Thank you for watching my video. I will be making more and look forward to your comments. Please let me know if you have any topics that you would like me to cover in future videos. Leave them below in the comments section. Questions are also welcome. Please like, subscribe, and share the video so that I can reach more viewers. Again, thanks for watching.